All right, it looks like we've had quite a few more people join, so let's go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to our session today. We're going to focus on the tools that you have in Sprout to engage with our smart inbox. Now, keep in mind, if you've got questions during the session, please feel free to enter those in the questions tab under the GoToWebinar control panel. We do get a lot of people on these calls, so I've got you guys on mute just so we can make it easier when it comes to audio. So please feel free to enter those questions again through that questions tab on the GoToWebinar control panel. I'll end up answering a lot of them just naturally as we go through the presentation. Then at the end, we'll save a couple minutes to make sure I get through any of those remaining questions. Sprout Social's unified smart inbox helps businesses effectively engage and also foster authentic conversations with their audience. So we've built our smart inbox around a couple of different concepts. One, that visibility into message volume and also activity enables you and your team to effectively and more efficiently communicate and talk to your customers. But also, we want to make sure that the tools that we give you enable you to not only be more effective and organized today, but also flexible enough to support your social strategy as it evolves in the future. So today, we'll not only discuss how to use the inbox features to manage your incoming messages across your social profiles, but we'll also look at how you can analyze your messaging and responsiveness using what's called our engagement report. You'll notice our inbox is a single feed. That is by design. We want to make it as easy and intuitive as possible for you to manage inbound messages. So to make sure that you have control over what you see, you'll notice that you have this inbox activity chart on the right, as well as some filters that we'll talk about momentarily. You can visualize your smart inbox activity in real time, whether it's all messages or only those that you still have to get to, hence the completed status. As you work through messages, you and your designated frontline team can mark them complete, removing them from the inbox and causing the blue completion bars to rise. Your whole team, regardless of message permissions, will see real-time progress and know really where each person left off. That helps ensure smarter, faster, more personal communications when you think about the way that you're talking with your audience. As you'll notice with the inbox chart on the upper right, you can see a visual count of inbox items by time frame. And this is right next to your message stream. You can click on an individual bar, let's say we're looking at 14 days, to dig into a specific week, day, or hour and isolate that set of messages. And here we're looking specifically at October 17th and any remaining items that we have. Now, certain users can be given this access to complete messages based on who you have, again, on your frontline team working through responding to customers, and completing those, moving on to the next item. You can give people access to complete messages if you are an account owner under the gear icon and users and social profiles. As an account owner, I can grant this permission to anyone, and if I grant it to a manager, that manager can then grant that permission to anyone. So we'll jump here into users and social profiles. Here's where the permission is, manage message status. Again, that allows your team members to complete messages. You may have some members that are users in Sprout that don't need to complete messages. You just give them access to the inbox. That's okay. This is a permission that is especially meant to help people who need to keep track of what's remaining, what they still have to get through, complete those messages and move on to the next thing. So as your team members are going through and completing messages, once messages are marked as complete, users on your team that have been granted that permission can remove them from the inbox by just simply making sure that this hide completed items checkbox is selected. This allows your team to, again, divvy up the workload, mark as complete, and hide those messages for the inbox so that each team member can move on to the next thing. It really allows for some smarter collaboration when you think about how many users work together in an inbox where all of your messages are being pulled in. To see the items that you have completed, just deselect this checkbox, and you can see not only what you've completed, but also what other people on your team have completed. In this case, we're looking at Jonah that has completed this message about a half hour ago. As an account owner, you can also click on the gear icon that will appear on the upper right of the smart inbox to bulk complete any historical messages. So if you haven't been using the complete status and you start to, and you want to just go ahead and kind of start from fresh with those historic messages, again, account owners, click on the gear icon on the upper right, and you can mark as complete in bulk for those historical remaining messages. So we've talked about the inbox chart on the upper right and also the ability to give team members permission to complete messages. You can also, of course, hide those completed items, making sure you're moving on to the next messages that are coming in and anything remaining. Let's also talk about the other filters that you have options to manage here below that allow you to see what's important to you in the inbox as a user. You can control which messages appear by selecting or deselecting specific profiles, message types, or brand keywords. Easily select or deselect, removing or adding the view for profiles, again, message types or brand keywords in the inbox. You can also go into what we call isolation mode. Click on either a profile, or you can even do this with brand keywords, and select the date from which you'd like to view your messages. So in a moment, I'm really creating a feed based on what I'd like to see. I could even go a step further and isolate mentions. So now I'm looking at any mentions that are at Boston Sprout Coffee. To jump back to the inbox, click the X on the left here, or you can just hit escape. Again, the same idea for message types here when it comes to selecting or deselecting. Now I can also filter and pull in messages based on what are called brand keywords. Brand keywords are a very important tool and something that you'll definitely want to take advantage of in Sprout. You'll be amazed at the messages that you're able to catch that you never would have seen before. Brand keywords are specific keywords that your audience may use while talking about your brand or when using some iteration of your brand's or business's name, and they're not necessarily mentioning you directly. We suggest having one keyword that's maybe your brand name to catch messages where you aren't mentioned directly, and let's click on edit to go into a brand keyword here. Keep in mind you do have to be a manager or an account owner to edit or add brand keywords. So a good use of brand keywords, and one of the more common use cases we'd see, would just be the actual phrase. So when someone talks about you, but again, they're not writing on your wall, they're not using an at mention. Also, of course, abbreviations of your name or misspelling. Sometimes people transpose our name and call us Social Sprout. That would be a good example. Even your name in the version of a hashtag or a common marketing hashtag that customers may use to talk to you. Use the rest of your keywords for things like product names, seasonal or time-limited campaigns and offers, and any additional monitoring otherwise that you need to do. We'll do an example here of a keyword that would be important for me to pull into the inbox and manage. We'll use the phrase Sprout Social and the word webinar. Now for Twitter keyword searches specifically, you can include search operators to filter out irrelevant messages and zero in on the keyword or phrase that matches what's most relevant to your brand. So whether you're looking for an exact phrase, messages in a specific language, or you need to exclude certain words using this minus symbol, you can configure keywords with operators to include only the results that matter to you. So in the case of the phrase Sprout Social and the word webinar that I added as a keyword, I use quotations to make sure that I only get results when people are using the exact phrase Sprout Social. I wouldn't want a message with those two words anywhere in it. So let's say something like, hello, I am social and my plant is starting to sprout. That's silly, right? It has nothing to do with my business or my brand. It isn't important to me. By using quotations, I can let Twitter know I only want results where those two words are together. A number of other operators you have access to as well, from, to, or mentioning a certain handle, since or until, attitudes, questions represented by people using question marks. You can even filter out specific URLs that people are using. So I could say filter sproutsocial.com and catch any messages where people are referencing our domain. Play around with these. Again, take advantage of them because you'll be amazed at the messages that you're able to catch and the conversations that you're quickly able to isolate and respond to that you never even knew were happening or you haven't been managing very well previously. For Twitter, we also offer geolocation, something that's available because of their API. So I could say in this case, I want to see anyone using the exact phrase Sprout Social and the word webinar within 5 miles of Chicago on Twitter. And then you name this something to show up in the keyword list that you and your team will remember and know what results are coming with that kind of phrase. Brand keywords do work for Facebook as well. Just keep in mind that we only are able to search all public posts and comments on Facebook. Because of Facebook's in-depth privacy settings for their users, not all of their activity is made public, and we don't have access to private data. This is a consistent kind of thing that exists with third parties that access Facebook's API. They respect those privacy settings, so we can only see, again, those public comments and posts. So just keep that in mind as you're setting up your search. Another example, using some of the operators that you have access to, let's say, would be maybe we want to catch people that are making positive statements about Sprout Social. So let's call the keyword positive statements, Sprout. And we're going to use not only quotations for exact phrases, but the or operator to string together a number of different phrases that would classify as kind of positive statements. So how about like Sprout Social or now with this or operator and these quotations, anyone using one or more of these exact phrases, their message would be pulled into Sprout and visible with the positive statements brand keyword. So again, a lot of creative ways that you can use these. Definitely play around with them to make sure that you're seeing the messages that are important to you. And again, to add keywords, you do have to be a manager or an account owner. And you have to have access to the actual profile as a manager, because you can be a manager with only access to certain profiles. So you do have to have access to the profile and be a manager or an account owner. So let's now look at some of the message actions that you have access to when you're looking at Twitter, Facebook, or Google Plus messages. Click on the gear icon in the upper right-hand corner of a message to view your available actions. Now, of course, as we talked about before, you can complete messages, but there's a lot of other options that you have based on the actions available on this message. For Twitter, for example, I could retweet, favorite, quote, email, translate, or report. For any message, you can also click save so that you can throw that into the Save Messages folder and potentially revisit that later. Saved message, or the Save Message option, should be used for messages that you're going to respond to and you're going to complete, but you just want to remember to reference at a later point for whatever reason. Maybe it is a compliment about your brand. Maybe it's a feature request or suggestion. Save message should be used for revisiting those conversations. If you still need to respond, you'll want to use the complete action to mark that complete if you've responded, or task that to someone to give them ownership. To create a task around a message, and this is useful when, let's say, I need to remember to follow up with someone later in this conversation, or I need to assign it to one of my other team members in Sprout because they need to follow up. Click on the task pin icon to task those incoming messages to your team members who are responsible for following up on managing the conversation. So we're going to assign this to Allie in this case. I can choose the type to give her context around the conversation. With our deluxe and premium plans, we also support a help desk integration so you can communicate back and forth with your team if they're using Zendesk or User Voice. Again, that's with premium plans and above. So you can also integrate that at those plan levels. We'll go more into that integration in our team session, which is the week after next. So you're welcome to join that webinar session as well if you're really, really interested in the team features specifically. So again, we can task this to one of our team members. We'll do Allie in this case. And when I click Save and Exit, Allie's been assigned a task. And I also completed the message automatically so we can get that out of the inbox. She's going to manage that in the Tasks tab, and I can move on to the next message. You'll notice in the inbox, as we're responding to messages, completing, as messages are being tasked, we will show you real-time updates and team attribution on that message. So in this case, I see this reply icon is shaded. That means someone replied. Scroll over, and I can see that it was Keenan who replied to the specific message. And we've got some really great CRM functionality and conversation history that's available for Twitter specifically when we look at a platform. So we'll start walking through that now. Now let's say I'm going to reply in this case to John in this tweeter message. Click on the reply icon and we can start constructing our reply to John. Now you'll notice at my fingertips, I've got all of this great conversation history that's available. So I can see exactly what conversations that we've had with John before. It will even show messages from my other team members. That way, I know what, let's say, Britt has talked to John about before. I can build on those conversations, make sure I'm being authentic and relevant based on the relationship that we've built. So that conversation history, great. Again, at my fingertips to construct those really meaningful responses, but also high-level profile description information to the right. I can see if John is following us. I can also see if we're following in return, quickly follow or unfollow directly from this reply modal. If they're following you, turn it into a DM if you need to. You can choose the profile you'd like to respond from. And again, send off that response, perhaps including an image. And we'll default that to mark as complete so that you can say, hey, I responded and this conversation is complete. If it's not yet complete and you want to leave it in the inbox, you can just deselect the mark as complete. Click on either View Full Profile, or I can X out of the reply modal and click on John's avatar to the right or to the left. And here's where I see his full contact view. Now, this is not only his entire kind of existence on Twitter, right? His conversation history, tweets, mentions, followers, who he's following. But we've also got this record, and this exists as kind of a maintainable record across my entire team. I can add notes so that my team member can reference those. Perhaps John and I had an email conversation or a phone conversation, and I need my team member to be aware of something that we're offering John specifically or a conversation that we had. I can save those notes and it will be added to the history for my team members to view. You can also add contact information And again, my entire team can see this and we can all stay on the same page. Follow or unfollow directly from this page, just like we did in the reply modal. I can also add users to a Twitter list from this contact view. Create a new list if you need to, or you can add them to an existing list that you've already created in Twitter. We pull those right into Sprout. Once you've added people to a list, you can manage your lists, so not only see the members of the list, but also the conversations that they're having under the Feeds tab on the top. Now, I mentioned some of those real-time kind of team attribution tools that we offer, so you can see if someone's replying, if someone's completed or been tasked a message. You can also see if someone is viewing a message, and that is called collision detection. Collision detection shows you when another team member is already viewing a message so that you don't have to spend time jumping into that message. I can see right here that Jonah's viewing this. He's got it. I'm going to move on to the next message. Again, that's called collision detection. Awesome for teams. Gives you a real-time heads up if one of your team members has already got it covered and they're in the message. To view those messages that you saved to reference later, click on the Save Message tab, and I can sort these as well by profile, message type, or brand keywords and find that exact conversation that I need to share with my team or reference again. You can interact from messages as well from the Save Messages tab, removing them from saved if it's not something that you want to review any longer or don't need to. Now, before we jump to the engagement report, I mentioned, of course, creating tasks before. Keep in mind, you'll get an email if you're assigned a task so that you know what happens even if you're out of the app. You'll also see this task pin icon light up in the upper left. And you can manage those under the task tab. I can see my open tasks by general, leads, or issues. Easily click in, and you can see any activity associated with the task. Manage it here, reassign it if you need to, and then close it when it's complete. Your closed tasks are available under that tab. And as a manager or an account owner, you can also see all of the tasks available across your entire team by all open or closed. So great to just maybe jump in the morning and look at what's open and an issue that's outstanding with your team. The blue dot means it's unread. And again, we go further into the tasking functionality in our team session, which is 2 weeks from now. All right, so let's jump now into the engagement report. I know you guys are already asking some great questions. I see those popping up in the control panel. Again, I'll make sure and save some time at the end for us to cover those. The engagement report is available with our premium plans and above. And we created it to help you measure team engagement efforts happening around messaging in the Smart Inbox. This report allows you to analyze your response metrics to better understand and gauge your responsiveness to messages that warrant a response from your brand. You can customize this report to view the engagement for a specific social channel if you need to. You can also, of course, customize the time period that you're looking at. This is exportable into PDF. We don't charge per export, so feel free to take advantage of exporting that data as often as it makes sense for your business. Also, if you'd like your logo to show up on the exported report, click on the Customize Branding on the left. As a manager or an account owner, you have access to this, and you can add a logo per group to the engagement report. So what we're doing basically here with the engagement report is we're analyzing your inbound messages, and we're looking for words like who, what, when, where, why, and other question type indicators to identify which messages from your audience appear to warrant a response from your brand. Those are called your estimated inbound messages. So when someone tweets at you and says something like, let's say someone tweeted us and said, "How do I add brand keywords?" @ Sprout Social. That would be an example of an estimated inbound message. It includes our handle. It's got those question indicators. Same would apply if, let's say, someone writes on your Facebook wall and uses language like that. Once we calculate those inbound, we can calculate the replies that you sent, giving us an estimated response rate. We also will then show your average response time. So for all the responses that you're sending, how long on average does it take you? Your response time distribution. So in this case, we respond to 62% of messages in under 30 minutes, 100% within 24 hours. And then also your response rate and time by both day of week and hour. This will help us expose some really interesting trends about the way that you respond throughout the day and by day. Identify trends and gaps in response rates and times, looking at when you see longer response times. For example, here we see that is generally around lunchtime and it takes us longer to respond. And our response rate is much lower during handoff times than it is during kind of peak times of the day when we have the most people manning our social channels. You can use this information to adjust your social presence as needed. And if anything, just set benchmarks that you'd like to work forward from. Now, last but not least, we'll rank you at the top in this percentile ranking. comparing you against other social profiles that have a similar number of estimated inbound to your brand, just so that you can kind of put things in perspective with how you compare when it comes to that response, right? Again, this is available with premium plans and above. And that covers what I had planned for you guys today for our Engage with Smart Inbox webinar.